theme. And just a small tip, oftentimes, a story's resolution or the ending is often a clue to the story's theme. The author really may want you to learn the same lesson that the characters learn, or to even learn from the characters' mistakes. So the story that you read yesterday, titled Claudine's Tack Attack, was actually kind of a challenging text. This was a historical fiction text, and really you had to kind of have some background knowledge of this topic that's being presented in order to really fully understand this story. So that's why it's just practice. It's good exposure to these different genres. You know, we're talking about historical fiction, and again, if you don't have much background knowledge, this is how we do build our background knowledge. We have to read short text about this different era and this genre. So in this story, we're talking about a time when this political party in Germany that's referred to as the Nazis were taking over. They're occupying, or basically positioning themselves and kind of taking over in France. And they began this war, a war with Americans, and eventually it even spread to involve much of the world. Now, I know that maybe you've heard some of these words before, but this story is a story about two 11-year-old girls who were really they tried to be brave, and they really wanted to help the American troops by doing something to delay these German trucks that are driving through their village constantly. They're aggravated. They're kind of tired of hearing them. It's all they probably see every day from their window are these trucks driving by. And I might infer that because in paragraph 1 it says that my friend Claudine and I watched glumly as the trucks roared and rumbled by. And then they go on to say, too bad we can't slow them down. And then they come up with this idea, this plan, right? They're going to throw some of these tacks that her grandfather uses to shingle roofs or to attach the shingles to a roof. They're going to throw those out in the road and hopefully pop the tires on some of these large supply trucks and kind of slow down this process to help the American troops. So that was basically a summary of what this story was about. But remember, we're focused on the theme. So what lesson did this author want you to take away after reading this short story? Well, I think my own opinion about the theme, because I know that theme means that it can apply to other texts. So it's not going to be something specifically about Nazis or about Claudine or about tax. No, it's going to be something more broad, something that could apply to other characters and other situations. So I think the theme of this story was that even though it's a very small act of courage, it did make a difference. I know that the girls wanted to slow down those trucks, and they came up with this plan. So even just that very small act of courage, because it was very courageous what they did, they could have gotten in a lot of trouble if people saw or recognized what these two girls did, especially if the Germans who were driving the supply truck, found out what they did. They would be in a lot of trouble. So just this very small act of courage really made a difference, right? It made a small difference in the war effort. So that's the theme of this story. But today we want to take it a step further, and I want you to take a look at some multiple choice questions. You can see those on the screen here. If you're having trouble viewing it, you can expand the screen so that it's full screen. Question number 1 says, which statement best explains why the girls wanted to slow down the German trucks? Was it A, the girls did not want the Nazi trucks to take French supplies back to Germany? It really didn't suggest that they were traveling back to Germany and that they were taking French supplies. B, the girls wanted to make trouble for the German troops who were occupying France. You might infer that they're trying to make trouble by really by slowing them down, I guess, but I don't know that they're going to really do much more. Let's see, so B maybe, but let's keep looking. Let's look at answer choice C. The girls wanted to help the American troops steal German supplies that were being carried on the trucks. Again, maybe kind of like B, maybe that's something you might infer, that maybe that's why they did it, so that then the Americans could come and perhaps steal those supplies. But it doesn't really say that in the text. That might be an inference. Let's look at answer choice D. The girls wanted to slow down trucks delivering supplies to soldiers who were fighting American troops. Okay. I do believe that the question is specifically referring to why they wanted to slow down these trucks. So my answer choice really needs to reflect that exact part of the story. And I do know that they wanted to slow down the trucks to slow down the delivery of supplies to soldiers who were fighting American troops. So for question number 1, the best answer choice is going to be D. Let's look at question number 2. Which statement best describes how events in the paragraphs 5, 6, and 7 are important to the theme? Well, when we look back over to the other side of the screen, paragraph 5, paragraph 6, and paragraph 7, that's where they actually like go through and follow through with their plan of getting the tacks. They go up to a hill, they wait until they hear the rumble of those engines coming, and then they run down and very carefully they throw handfuls of tacks out in the road, and then they go and duck out of sight. And then they wait and they listen for all those tires to pop. So question number 2, which statement best describes how those events are important to the theme? Well, A, they show that the girls grew tired of looking out a window. No, that really is kind of supported in paragraphs like 1 and 2. B states, they show that the girls passed up a chance to be brave. No, the girls definitely did take the opportunity to be brave. C, they show that the girls' dangerous risk paid off. Well, actually, if we think about it, yeah, because they devised that plan, and then in those paragraphs, that's where they carry it through. And finally, it's like, oh, well, did it work? Yeah, it did, because now not only was that truck slowed down, but the others couldn't get through. Let's look at D. They show that the girls' clever plan was only temporary. Well, I mean, not really, because all the other trucks were slowed down as well. I think the best answer in question number 2 is going to be C, that their dangerous risk paid off. All right, so that wraps up part 1. In the second part of this video, sorry about that, you have an interruption from my friend Hazel May. In the second part of this video, we're going to go through and I'm just going to briefly introduce to you the text you're reading today. It is titled From Sir Ivan. We're just calling it Sir Ivan for easier. Just make it not for easier, but just so we know. So join me in part 2. We're going to take a look at that text. This is the text that you are going to read today. This is a legend about a young man named Sir Ivan and the story of the Black Knight. Now, this man, he is part of the Knights of the Round Table, and he tells this story of when he was young and he came across this Black Knight who has kind of just like, people have told stories about him and they know that he lives out in the woods, this wooded area, and nobody has ever been able to catch the Black Knight. But he has unfortunately killed other people. And Sir Ivan has now an opportunity and he feels like he wants to prove himself worthy. And the king states that he wants to send this group of people, this group of knights out to capture and find the Black Knight, finally, once and for all. But Sir Ivan feels like, this is his chance to prove himself, that he can do it on his own. But the king says, no, I would like a group of people to go. Well, Sir Ivan actually sneaks out in the middle of the night, and he is referred to as being disobedient. And he thinks he's going to prove himself brave, but really what he did was prove himself disobedient. Sir Ivan goes off and he finally reaches the Black Knight there in the forest. And he fights the Black Knight, and the Black Knight is very wounded, and he kind of retreats. He leaves. He gallops off with his horse. And Sir Ivan, that's not enough. He wants the Black Knight dead. And so he races after him, and he follows him all the way back to this castle where the Black Knight lives. And I don't want to give away the end of the story, but something happens, something changes here at the end of the story. And I want you guys to read and really think about the lesson that Sir Ivan learned in this story through his actions and his reactions. And the theme is kind of developed here at the end of the story. There are some words throughout this text and the language that they use that's kind of different. It comes from a time long ago, and let me see if I can find an example for you guys to take a look at. Right here. We fought for a little while, but he easily overthrew me. Thinking me dead, he rode back, leaving me on the ground. But after time, I was able to mount my horse and went back to my mother's castle. So you can see the language is slightly different. Again, it's just kind of how this language was spoken back then. So just read it carefully. You kind of have an overview now what this story is about. And then you do have some questions, some multiple choice and short answer response that you will respond to after you read this text. Let me know if you guys have any questions.